Now on YouTube, we dance.
This. Gosh, how does Justin trump me on some of these things?
Hey, let's not get political.
Funny,
guys, let's keep politics out of this.
funny story on that. My buddy Katie, who works at the Wall Street Journal, in the bankruptcy beat, which is amazing. She's so smart to do it because you can write a million different stories. The most traffic story she ever had was about 50 Cent's bankruptcy.
Really?
Does she ever do follow up with people like famous people who've gone into bankruptcy and like are totally...
Oh yeah, no, a lot of the stories are not current. Like they're like stories. Like basically, her beat gives her license to tell the most interesting bankruptcy stories, and many of them aren't happening now. The 50 Cent bankruptcy was interesting because he wound up getting hauled back to bankruptcy court because after the verdict was announced, he spelled out broke in $100 on his Instagram.
Right.
But
great way to prove you're broke.
But okay. An Instagram photo brought him back to court? That could have been anybody's money, right?
That's what the court was wanting to know.
He said it was incumbent upon his ability to make a living to continue to project a certain image, and that's what he was doing. He then continually hinted through interviews that he had hidden his money and he was just not going to pay this woman.
Wow. Well, enough about Curtis Jackson.
On that note,
the things you learn on Daily Tech News Show, ladies and germs.
Yeah, if you're not subscribed to the Patreon feed, you're missing a lot of cultural literacy. From speciation to 50 Cent's bankruptcy and beyond.
Mm-hmm. And the terror of hosting your own one-man show.
The terror of knowing what the world is about. Watching your good friends scream, "Let me out."
What is with us today? Gosh. What?
We're just under pressure, Sarah.
I woke up like this. Yeah, it's we're under extreme pressure. A song about that.
Believe it evolves, the terror of knowing what this world is about. All right, let's do this. You guys ready?
Yep.
Yes.
Here we go now. Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. And I'm not talking to the other person. I'm talking to you. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, March 15th, the Ides of March 2018. From DTNS headquarters in Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
From Oakland, California, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And a man who puts Julius Caesar to shame, our producer, Roger Chang.
Yes, the original Orange Julius.
Original
reference.
Yes. Dairy Queen, Orange Julius. So many good things. Good things remind me of this show. And this show is going to talk about the future of the internet. The internet is saved, everybody.
Hooray!
Oh, fair. That's what I was looking for.
Well,
All right.
I don't know. A little premature, but we'll get to that.
Let's start with a few tech things you should know.
Google has officially renamed Android Wear operating system for watches to Wear OS. The name change more accurately reflects the fact that the Watch OS works with Android and iOS both.
Nest announced that a temperature sensor that works with its thermostat schedules to ship in April for $39 each or in a 3-pack for $99. Up to 6 sensors can be paired with the Nest Learning Thermostat and the Nest Thermostat E. The sensors do not work with first or second gen Nest thermostats. Nest also launched the Nest Hello Video Doorbell for $229 and the Nest X Yale Door Lock for $249.
One's a bell. Yeah, there's a lock. You got to wire it in. I don't know.
Yeah.
Intel's next generation Xeon processors and the 8th gen Intel Core processors that will ship in the second half of the year are going to come with the new architecture that partitions things off to prevent against the Spectre vulnerability. This will provide protection without the performance hit that the firmware fix has. And speaking of that firmware fix, Intel also said that firmware updates are available for all chips made within the last 5 years. All right, let's talk a little more about a record, about a moment in history that happened last night, Justin.
One might say it was God's plan, Tom. Twitch streamer Ninja, a.k.a. Tyler Blevins, brought rapper Drake onto his stream to play Fortnite, setting a Twitch benchmark for concurrent streams at 635,000. The two were later joined by Steelers rookie Juju Smith-Schuster and rapper Travis Scott. Ninja is the most popular Twitch streamer with 3 million followers and 160,000 paid subscribers. The previous record for concurrent viewers was 388,000 by Dr. Disrespect. For those of you on the gamer side, a little bit of a passing of the torch, as Dr. Disrespect, of course, is most famous for PUBG, Person Unknown's Battlegrounds, and Fortnite is the successor, some would say, almost direct in terms of...
Yeah. There has been no love lost between those two franchises, and Fortnite seems to be ascendant here.
Indeed. So this is gigantic. I mean, like, look, this is 635,000 like verified. This is not when people say, okay, let's compare what things get online to television, for example. This is everybody was exactly there in front. This is not an estimation like Nielsen ratings are. That's, depending on how you want to do the math on that, if this were run in the same calculations that Nielsen counts television ratings, there's a very good chance that number would even be estimated higher. What do you think? Did this make your hotline bling?
Yes, Drake was the name I recognized in this story. Thank you, Justin. I think we had a good conversation on your stream earlier today about where this sits. Like, this feels like the first time I've ever seen Twitch on the front page of BBC News. This feels like the kind of thing that grabbed a lot of attention, that people who may have heard of Twitch but didn't know what it was finally brought it in front of them. Whether it's the moment that Twitch goes mainstream or not, I think history will have to judge. It's a little too early to tell.
You know, the fact that Ninja, who I was not familiar with before, but he's the most popular Twitch streamer, 3 million followers, and then you say 635,000 concurrent streams. Like, okay, well, that's like less than 1/3 of his total followers. But Justin, I think you make a good point that this is concurrent streams at one time, and whether or not that's the highest concurrent streams that other platforms have enjoyed, it's twice as much as what the current record was.
Sure.
And look at YouTube. You can have people with 1 million subscribers, and they get like 5,000 views on a video. Like, followers and subscribers do not equate to views.
Are not the same thing. I guess the question here is, and we will see going forward, is where this is in the grand scheme of, like, is this leave Britney alone? Like, does this enter into the celebrity sphere and now never goes away? Or is this just the fact that Drake is, bored between recording sessions and has gotten into Fortnite and now is just killing an evening?
Or is Drake investing in Twitch?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because certainly Juju Smith-Schuster is now a gamer, avowedly. So everybody had their own little agenda going here. Maybe that's Drake's. That's an interesting question.
Reuters reports that Amazon company documents indicate more than 5 million people worldwide joined Amazon Prime by early 2017 in order to watch TV shows. Speaking of streams, the internal documents indicate that Amazon's U.S. audience for TV is about 26 million, which is half of Netflix's Q1 2017 U.S. subscriber number, to put things into perspective. The Man in the High Castle had 8 million U.S. viewers by early 2017 and attracted 1.15 million new Prime subscribers worldwide. Amazon estimated that the show's cost meant each new subscriber it acquired costs $63.
And when you consider that Prime cost $99 to get, Man in the High Castle was a profitable show for Amazon, I suppose.
Profitable, and also, I'm not going to say that nobody liked it, but of the people who I talk to about these sorts of things, it wasn't the Amazon's best offering, but it did get a lot of
Who are you
publicity.
talking to? This is definitely one of Amazon's best offerings.
Did you think it was a good show?
Yes, I loved it.
You did?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I should have talked to you before this. No, I in most of my other circles, people thought it was not a very good show, but it was well produced. It was interesting, and it kind of speaks to Amazon being able to say, "Hey, here's this big new offering," and people saying, "I got to watch the show."
And also part of it is just establishing this as a place where you find these things. Ask CBS Interactive how hard it is, even once you get a gigantic mainstream name like Star Trek there, to keep subscribers onto a platform. It's a battle that they're fighting right now. Also, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, highly recommended. Just started watching that on Amazon.
Very good show. Very good show. Although, I mean, to Sarah's point, you don't have to like a show for it to be successful. Good Girls Revolt, critically acclaimed show, total U.S. viewership of 1.6 million. So it ended up costing Amazon $1,560 per new customer. It just didn't bring that many people in. All right, so Monday we talked about the Qualcomm Broadcomm acquisition being scuttled by the president and our curiosity as to why. We talked a lot about what this meant for Qualcomm, Broadcom, and Intel, but I thought we'd follow up a little on what the general consensus is of why this happened. It seems to mostly have to do with 5G. Qualcomm and Huawei are two of the dominant manufacturers of 5G equipment of a certain sort, of the modems that go into the phones and that sort of thing. And the U.S. government has prohibited itself from buying from Huawei. They're actively campaigning against Huawei. Broadcom has a history of cutting costs and production at companies it acquires. So it may be that the U.S. feared Broadcom would gut Qualcomm's 5G efforts, leaving Huawei in charge of that market. Now, Mike Kepper over in our Slack asked, how can the president do this? How can he just sign a piece of paper and stop a merger? First would be to use the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. We've talked about that before. It was created during the Ford administration to keep tech out of the hands of the Soviets. It's historically been rather quiet, but during the Obama administration, when this started, not during the current administration, the U.S. began to use it to protect what Fortune calls national champions, mostly from Chinese competition, and the CFIUS usually can discourage acquisition just by influence. In this case, that didn't work. So the other option is to use national security as the justification. Broadcom is a Singaporean-based company. It mostly exists in the U.S. It's redomiciling to the U.S. no matter what. It was not about China directly, but that same fear about leaving the market open to Huawei dominating 5G production can be spun into a security concern. And then you get to do this. In 1988, the Congress passed the Trade and Competitiveness Act of 1988, which included an amendment called the Exxon-Florio Amendment. That said that all foreign investments that might affect national security may be reviewed, and if deemed to pose a threat to security, the president may block the investment. So Congress gave the president that power. That's the power that the president just used to say, national security, out of here. And it pretty much goes down to making 5G modems for phones.
We also know that 5G networks and national security have been at least at some place on the mind of the Trump administration, considering there was that plan floated a few months back about nationalizing build out of a 5G network so as to keep it out of the hands of any kind of parts that were manufactured in China, either now, in the past, or in the future.
Yeah. So there you go. I hope that clears things up a little more.
I think it did, Tom. Linus Torvalds has criticized the CTS Labs security report on AMD chip flaws, saying, when was the last time you saw a security advisory that was basically, if you replace the BIOS or the CPU microcode with an evil version, you might have a security problem? Yeah. Torvalds agrees that the bugs are real but not critical. CTS gave AMD 24 hours notice before publishing its report, rather than the industry standard 90 days. Torvalds also said, quote, it looks more like stock manipulation than a security advisory to me. Plop, plop, plop. Shots fired, Tom.
Yeah. Nobody is disagreeing with the technical underpinnings of the report, but there's a lot of argument about whether it's actually something that's worth reporting. That it's like, well, look, these are the kind of bugs that happen all the time. Sure, you should tell AMD, give them 90 days to fix them, but they are not something to fret about. That's what Linus Torvalds is saying.
Today, Google is rolling out a wheelchair accessible routing option for Google Maps. So for anybody that needs that, wheelchair ramps, elevators, the like will now be factored in to guide people with mobility needs. Google said it's working with local governments and information provided by users in its local guides program to beef it up. The rollout is small, limited to 6 cities across the globe. Room for improvement, but it is a start.
Yeah, this is great. There's so many people who would be able to take advantage of Google Maps more if this information was there, now can.
Well, I have a friend who is not in a wheelchair, but has limited mobility. And the first question, anytime I'm like, hey, want to try the new sushi place? He's like, are there stairs? What's the deal? Are we going to sit in the back of the restaurant? Like these are questions that, for some people are really important. So the more information you can have off the bat, whether, it's a wheelchair or, even if it's like a one-off thing where you're going to be, I don't know, carting a bunch of stuff on a, hand truck or whatever it is, the more you know, the better.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And look, and if in hilly, uneven places like San Francisco, they can have bike directions, then they can certainly do, you leverage a lot of the same kind of knowledge bases to make better wheelchair accessibility routes. This is tech done good, folks.
Folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, you've got an option, and we bring it to you thanks to your support. It's called Daily Tech Headlines. You can get it on the Amazon Echo as a flash briefing, on the Google Home, on the Anchor app, and as a podcast in your favorite podcatcher. Just go to dailytechheadlines.com to find out more. Matteo Gianpietro Zago is president of the Internet of Blockchains and founder of Essentia. Essentia is using the blockchain to provide sort of a decentralized data and identity service. Zago has a Medium post called Why the Web 3.0 Matters, and You Should Know About It. Now, this used to be a topic of concern during the Buzz Out Loud days when I was back at CNET. What's going to follow Web 2.0? Is it social media? Is it apps? Turns out it's Web 3.0, and it's finally here. He defines Web 2.0 as the era of interactive content. So he kind of lumps social media and apps into Web 2.0. He says, yeah, sure, it started with Ajax-powered interactive sites, but this kind of interactivity where you're the product and you give your information to a company is Web 2.0. However you define it, the rise of fast internet interactivity has allowed the largest companies in the world. Wrap your head about that. We talk about it a lot, but the largest companies in the world are Web 2.0 companies. Google, Amazon, Facebook. And they have centralized stockpiles of your personal data. And that is the cause of most of the controversial stories. Fake news, privacy, data breaches, right to be forgotten. The whole GDPR thing going on in Europe where they're trying to crack down on companies sharing private information. So Zago thinks that we're at the beginning of Web 3.0, which he calls the antithesis of this. It's about multiple profit centers sharing value across an open network instead of using you as a product to centralize a huge amount of profit in a few companies. Now, here are some examples. And I would mention these, and then we can kick around where we think this is going, how likely we think it's going to happen. And Justin, you have a very good way of phrasing this question that I want to hear. He says, no central point of control. Blockchains like Ethereum provide a trustless platform where the rules are unbreakable and data is fully encrypted. I mean, no rules are unbreakable, but as close to unbreakable as you can get. Users own and secure their data, again, in containers. They're encrypted. You're in control. There's a lot of companies that feature this. Interoperability. Apps become device and OS agnostic because you can use them anywhere on the chain. Permissionless blockchains erase borders. So the inability of companies to use an IP address to tell where you are because everything's decentralized. And uninterrupted service because denial of service attacks don't work well if you don't have a centralized server. Now, he mentions a lot of projects that I think he is either involved with or admiring. Some that he doesn't mention are Tim Berners-Lee's project Solid, that wants to make a container for your data that you can add or remove from social services. There's also Resilio is an example of decentralized storage, which Zago does mention, STORJ. There's Library for providing video or audio content without a centralized server, again, lbry.io. So Justin, how do we look at this? How do we frame this?
So when we were going over this earlier, the first thing that kind of popped into my mind was, man, does this argument sound familiar to me? And it ultimately, the way that I could contextualize it in my brain was, this is basically the open source revolution. The idea that, and not to say that it's exactly technically the same thing, but in the same way that open source was like, hey, look, on a long enough timeline, the open source solutions will be better patched. They'll be better managed. You're not going to have to worry about dumb decisions being made by the wrong people for the wrong reasons. And eventually we will find it. The masses will understand that these are better solutions than locking ourselves in walled gardens so other people can monetize us like cattle. And as we've seen, while open source programming is probably the most influential and certainly is oftentimes at the vanguard of changes technically, that there is still a value for a central place of and a company that is keeping and managing a service. And not to say that these Web 3.0 companies are not going to manage exactly what they are offering. And I guess my only question here is, why won't what is the fundamental difference as to why all the companies that they are listing on one side of this list that are Web 2.0 hashtag old and busted and all these Web 3.0 new hotness companies, why can't Google or Amazon adopt some of these ways of doing things to just continue to shore up their platform?
Listen, man, open source is great, but why can't IBM and Microsoft just adopt some of those measures and keep it out of business? The reason was they felt it was against their profit motive. And definitely Google, Facebook, and such are going to feel decentralizing things and letting go of personal information is against their profit motive. They're going to find it very hard to want to let go of that. On the other side of whether these new Web 3.0 type apps are open source or are they the new Googles is the question of, do they have a business model? Yeah. And most of them have a business model that's vaguely defined around some kind of crypto coin. You buy into the crypto coin, then you use it on the chain, and then it appreciates in value, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you know, the brilliance of Google, the brilliance of Amazon, the brilliance of Facebook, they all used open source software to help themselves grow fast and cheap, and then became profitable companies. So where these things are like Solid, the MIT project with Tim Berners-Lee, that feels like open source, and you wonder, like, well, is this going to be Linux and lead to other things like Android, or is this going to be like OpenOffice and just always be an option but never take over? Some of these other ones, though, like Essentia, which is the author's product, are definitely trying to disrupt data centers. They're trying to say, like, hey, pay us a lot less because it doesn't cost us as much, and we'll provide a lot more security and protection.
I guess, you know, my question, and, you know, when we sort of rattle off how Web 3.0 might promise, you know, a better life for everybody, certainly, you know, out of the confines of social networking as we know it now, to use Facebook, just Facebook is like, you know, my example of like, it's where everybody is, but we all complain about it, and there are a lot of issues, and, you know, the network itself is trying to figure out, you know, how do you take away certain features that you've deemed irresponsible / harmful to the greater good of society without affecting your bottom line too much. What does Facebook look like if no one leaves Facebook, and many people, not everybody, but many people don't quite understand what the motivations would be for this new Web 3.0 world?
And that is the question, right? And I can think of multiple answers, but one of those optional answers is me saying that's what people said about Facebook. Why would I want to use it? Why would I leave MySpace? Why would I use it at all? Why would I use Twitter? I don't get it. How many times did we hear people say that after you signed up for Twitter and got it? And that's the jump that these news services have to make, is convincing those people, hey, this is why. And that's hard to do. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it doesn't work. And those companies are peach. They go away and we never hear from them again. But sometimes it works. Sometimes you have a Google that comes along and people are like, well, why would I leave Alta Vista? And then Google is just so much better that it takes over the world.
Question. How much do people really care about privacy? Like, I know that it is something that we talk about a lot here. It is certainly something that in an abstract, if you break it down for people, they care more about. But ultimately, almost all the decisions that we see in terms of big mainstream trends is give me feature, give me convenience. I will cash in my privacy token.
Well, we're starting to see a change. We had that recent survey that we talked about where people actually started to say, no, I will actually, security is starting to matter to me. There's been enough breaches or I've been affected where it's actually starting to matter, whereas previous versions of the surveys, people are like, nah, convenience for sure. So there is a little evidence that the opinion is changing. And then there's also the anecdotal evidence of, you know, the app of the week where people are like, oh, finally, an app that values privacy. Oh, wait. I don't know if I like the founder because he was involved with a weird Saudi company, but I think that showed the appetite for alternative is there. And just the fury over things like fake news and privacy protections in Europe, calling for new legislation every week. It seems like there's another investigation. It means that if somebody can crack the code, they can play that as a competitive advantage. At least that's what I think.
That's good stuff, Tom.
Well, thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com and facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. Don't forget to let us know what you think about this. Do you not care about privacy? Do you care about privacy? Let us know in any of those places or just by emailing us feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com, in which case Sarah might read your email when she reads the mailbag.
Exactly. Just like I'm about to read Dave's email. He comes from St. Louis, says, go Cards. You asked for suggestions yesterday that Scott might use for his now outdated Raspberry Pi. Scott was like, I could get a new one, but I'd rather sort of, figure out something to do with this one. Check out Pi-hole. This is Dave's recommendation. That's pi-hole.net. Program started as a geeky ad blocking program, but now is easy to install and a use program that only sends ads to a black hole. Not only, but can also be configured to block malware and other undesirable sites. The program installs with a single command line, has grown to include a graphical interface, lots of information about browsing on your network. Instructions are all there. Give it a shot.
Oh, very good. Well, Dave,
cool.
I'll be happy to know I forwarded that to Scott Johnson, along with
I heard you typing.
along with many other of the great emails we got from people. We got a bunch suggesting things you could do with this Raspberry Pi. What are we going to do with all those?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Tom, because tomorrow, after the regular DTNS show, Tom and I, and perhaps another guest, we'll see, TBD on that, are going to have our second monthly, even though we missed February, mailbag show. So this is sort of our opportunity not only to get to a lot of the feedback that we don't have time for on the show, but we really want to address, but also even go back and revisit some, trending emails that we seem to get, or, themed emails, or even an email that you might have heard on DTNS before that we weren't able to unpack with as much time. So this should incentivize you. If you haven't written us and you'd like to be part of the mailbag, now is the time. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com.
Yeah, we want to do a lot of this sort of like, hey, help a friend out. In this case, Scott, but could be anything.
Exactly.
And then regarding the part-time YouTube moderators, we talked about the difficulty of that and how YouTube wants to limit it to 4 hours a day. One of our listeners wrote in regarding their work in Iraq and Afghanistan in digital forensics, which of course, as you might imagine, led to them seeing a lot of disturbing images. They wrote, it does have an effect on you. A fellow team leader had a breakdown after a couple of tours. All of us who did the work have our issues. Some people are better at compartmentalizing it than others. I consider myself one of them. But there are times when what I've seen comes back unexpectedly. I try not to let it get me in everyday life, but I do suffer from depression and anxiety. Some of it, I'm confident, was exacerbated by that work, along with other factors. In the DMX forensics community, which is majority law enforcement, there are a lot of post-traumatic stress issues from dealing with mostly child pornography. It's real, and I feel for these young people at Google and Facebook who have to deal with it. I'm glad they're taking steps to make it a smaller portion of their work, and I sincerely hope they are providing good, free counseling for these folks.
Yeah, and when we talked about this yesterday, and I was saying, well, they're contract workers and they don't have medical benefits, and isn't that irresponsible? And Tom pointed out, rightfully so, well, they there might be something else that they're getting. We don't know that they're not being offered benefits at all. But this feedback is, really hit the nail on the head. And, hopefully I was getting my message across yesterday as well as I could, be more of a spectator about this than anything. That, again, it's you're asking folks to do something for money, and hey, paycheck's a paycheck. But what you are asking of folks may go above and beyond anything that humanly is possible to handle in a way that is healthy for the people involved doing it. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it seems to be pretty bad. And when you hear from folks who have worked in law enforcement or the military or, similar fields that say this is a really widespread problem, without even the tools that somebody, let's say, on a police force would get before they even join the police force, those sorts of tools to deal with the stuff. I really worry about anybody making ends meet with a job that is so traumatic for them in the long run.
Yeah. And with law enforcement or medicine or similar professions, you're trained, you're prepared. And if you can't face it, there's no shame in saying, you know what, that's not for me. Right. This kind of situation, you may not be properly prepared.
Well, and not only, I think the post-traumatic stress comes from not knowing what's around the corner.
Yeah.
Once you have that in your head, I think takes time and effort to psychologically let yourself know that it's not going to show up not only in the next slide that you have to run through for your job, but also in your life.
Yeah, think about how many times you were like, I had a really good week, and all of a sudden this thing's been really bothering me, and it kind of derailed everything. And that can be very trivial things. If it's part of your livelihood, it's potentially a major thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing to those who did that. That was very good of you, and other people did as well.
Thanks also to Justin Robert Young. It is Thursday, another show in the can. Justin, what's going on since you've gone back from South by Southwest in one piece, I might add, I think. Anyway.
Barely. I swear, man, they got to uncouple that spring forward from South by. That is a cruel
insult to injury, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Sweet Lord, you're not whistling Dixie. Yeah. Listen, folks, you can go ahead and check me out at politics.com. We are running our American Sex Scandals bracket. I know I did the live show a couple weeks ago, but also you can follow at Contender Game on Twitter, where we are conducting a bracket for the internet itself. You guys can help vote. We've already had a bunch of people advance. We have new first round matchups already there for your voting. You can read all about all of these scandals on links from the Twitter. So twitter.com/contendergame.
Thanks to everybody who supports this show with their emails, with their opinions, with their support on Patreon at patreon.com/DTNS. And of course, please peruse our fine selection of branded gear with both old and new DTNS logos at dailytechnewsshow.com/store.
Our email address, once again, is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We are live Monday through Friday. If you can join us, we love it. 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Len Peralta will be creating brand new art during the show tomorrow, and we'll have Ayaz Akhtar as our guest. Woo-hoo. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
I got that. That was good.
I do that every time, but I jumped the gun a little bit. My little Muppet laugh.
Good thick show on a lot of points.
Sorry, like there were a couple times where I was like, and I see the red, so I'm not jumping in.
Yeah. Well, what happened at the very end of our main topic is I was in a different tab of the spreadsheet.
No, because I saw the red light and I was just like, all right, that's Roger saying. Move.
Yeah, no, you're right. You guys are right. And I was going back to the tab. I'm like, oh, and here we go.
Well, happens to the best of us. No, it was really good though.
Yeah.
Good time. Wait a minute.
Twin patties of discussion.
Was that you earlier, Sarah, giving a thumbs down to the marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
That show, man. Are you even kidding me with that? I am known in one of my Slack groups as the person who likes all the things that other people don't like.
Gotcha.
And hates everything that other people like. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just being honest. I did not like the Marvelous Maisel thing. I didn't. I watched like 3 episodes and I was like, this is not working for me anymore.
Monster.
Not going to watch it. But everyone else was like, you're a monster. It's the best. So,
yeah.
I mean,
and you are.
Were you a Gilmore Girl? No. Did you like the Gilmore Girls show?
No.
I thought that show was overrated.
Unwatchable.
Okay.
Sorry.
If you, I will say, if you, Amy Sherman Palladino has a very specific way of writing where everybody has a quip and everybody is constantly setting up.
I don't like Aaron Sorkin stuff either. So
bingo.
Pile on, but that's
no.
Me.
I don't blame you. I mean, if you find that stuff kind of precious and too cute,
the unrealistic cadence of it makes me crazy.
Did you like the movie Juno?
Roger.
I did.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
Decentralized Web 3.0.
Yeah? All right, good. A Decentralized Web 3.0. Thanks. Carry on.
Oh, I said, did you like the movie Juno?
Yes. That was a good movie.
That show annoyed me, or that movie annoyed me.
Okay, see? That's the beauty. That's the beauty of humanity, guys.
I guess, no,
Let's
but that
embrace our differences.
That is kind of interesting. And it's funny because that writing style, I think, really kind of crystallized in the 90s, early aughts that has kind of fallen out of favor. It's like Kevin Smith, even Quentin Tarantino.
Because it's too clever. There's a point where it becomes too clever and becomes tedium.
Well, the problem that I had with Aaron Sorkin content, and I agree that The West Wing was a wonderful show, but it's sort of like, oh, but didn't you like The West Wing? Like, that's the argument I always hear where I'm like, it's that old trope again, though. Like I want to, it's sort of like.
Listen, Sarah.
Like Clerks was great. You just can't do a sequel to Clerks and then do a Clerks spin on every movie you write.
And I mean, Clerks also is like, I know it's, it's in time as, but like, have you watched Clerks lately? It doesn't age that well.
Clerks is a movie that very similar to a lot of movies in the 70s. When you rewatch them, you're like, oh my God, is this one scene of like a car pulling in? We need to watch him park his car fully, like just whatever. Who cares? Like there's a lot of pacing stuff in Clerks that I think if it made today would probably be done a lot differently. Yeah. But I think in the writing, the biggest issue is it sounds like all the characters are the same person. And they're kind of just all setting each other up and being like fun and clever together. And that was kind of a big thing about Kevin Smith writing. But you can also definitely say it in Amy Sherman Palladino's writing, where it's like, all right, this is all, every character is like this hive mind, and they're all
that's
people.
And that's where for me, the tedium comes in, because that's not what I want, right? You can make an amazing salad, but you don't want that salad in every freaking thing you eat.
Well, it depends on how amazing it is.
Well, I
mean, if it's like the perfect salad, why change it? But no, I know what you mean.
Like the reason why shows and kind of concepts work over time is because there's enough variety that you don't get too settled on like, oh, this movie is just nothing but pensive staring into each other's, vacant
To a
eye.
point. To a point. It's interesting to figure out what that line is, and it's different for every person because every story follows the same arc. Like there is an uber trope of what a story is, and the farther it departs from that trope, the worse people think the story is. But if it's told exactly the same way, then yes, people are like, that's just exactly this version of a story. So there's there's that happy middle ground where they've given you just enough new ways of telling it, but it's still 3-act structure, conflict, overcoming, etc.
And I think
I don't know why I'm a
it's
robot
not even
when I say
that, if a formula is the problem. It's when, and I know that, a lot of times art is made where it's like, it's not necessarily reflecting how humans actually are. It's art.
Yeah.
But when it's sort of like, oh, this is an unrealistic way that someone would, get through this conflict, and sort of this back and forth thing where, I think somebody used the word precious earlier. It's like, it's just, you kind of want to use it sparingly rather than build your entire empire around that.
The biggest problem,
this has
Sarah.
nothing to do with that, but the movie Lady Bird, that has like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? Nobody hates that movie. I didn't hate it, but I watched it and I was like, never need to watch that again.
Wait, it didn't totally define your childhood?
Not at all. No. I mean, I don't know. Like she's from Sacramento, so the Northern California thing, I guess.
Oh, I didn't even
can
realize.
get this.
I haven't seen the movie. That was just like the rap of like every woman that I've talked to about Lady Bird is like, oh my God, it's amazing. It defines my relationship.
Me too. Especially women who are like, wow. And I mean, just like the relationship that a young lady has with their mother, where I'm like,
a lot of that, I mean, it's weird. Like what Tom was saying, it's true for other people than, yourself. For example, my background in history would fall along the lines of Fresh Off the Boat, like because my dad bought a restaurant that serves steak and seafood, moved to a town that was like 95% white. But like my experience and value system is totally different, and it evolved in an entirely separate way. Like I just ended up
exactly. Yeah, where someone would be like, "Oh, you must love that show," and you're like,
I hate that show. It's annoying.
Necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's all about where your head's at,
Yeah.
what you've been thinking, and your experiences. It's not just one thing. The problem, Sarah, though, is that when you visit Brian Brushwood, and you will, and you get into his Jeep, you will not have that Gilmore Girls feeling of love that I had.
That's kind of creepy.
What
Get
does
into
that?
it.
I don't understand the reference being
Because
made.
hilariously, Brian bought the exact same Jeep that the main character in Gilmore Girls drives around.
Like on purpose? Or?
No.
I want the Gilmore Girls option
Is
package
it a
on my Jeep.
specific type of Jeep? I mean, there are a lot of Jeeps out there.
No, it's a classic red Jeep. With,
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah. See, again, don't even know the reference. I'm like,
No.
why does Brian?
And that's what I'm saying. That's what's so sad. You'll get in it, and you won't be able to give him a hard time, and
just
he'll
so
love.
Lost on me. I know that the daughter was one of the girls in the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not totally in the dark.
Rory. Her name is Rory.
Rory, right? Yeah, she's really cute, and
she's also in *Handmaid's Tale*.
Oh gosh, that's true. Yes, blessed be the fruit.
Mm-hmm. May the fruit open or whatever.
Under his eye, certainly. I'll say the one thing I will say about Marvelous Mrs. Maisel that I did really enjoy compared to other Amy Sherman Palladino works is that I think she is at her best when her plot or her I forget which one it is, story or plot. The one where things are happening, and the characters are kind of constantly things are happening to the characters and they are moving and changing, and it's not just a bunch of let me talk about my feelings. And that I think is sometimes she is so in love with her dialogue that
right. The cerebral kind of stuff gets tiresome.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, now I'm going to talk about my feelings at a coffee shop. And now I'm going to talk about the DMV. And now I'm going to run into somebody at the coffee shop after the DMV that is going to talk about my feelings.
I mean, listen. Also, I cried alone. Well, I wasn't alone. I had my cats with me. Almost worse. But, watching a ghost story last night, crocodile tears. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know anything.
What
Gilmore
I
Girls is
love,
probably a great series.
what I love right now is that Justin Robert Young
Yeah.
is defending Mrs. Maisel. I am the Gilmore Girls fan.
Sure.
Sarah is the hater of those two.
Yeah.
And Roger doesn't like Fresh Off the Boat. Like, we're just busting stereotypes all over the place.
All over.
Sarah didn't like Lady Bird.
I didn't hate it, and I don't want to get your emails about that. Actually, I do.
No, yeah.
Go ahead and send it.
Light him on fire.
Light them up.
No, but I
I'm
mean,
Greta Gerwig.
I've had a lot of people just be like, "What's wrong with you?"
I mean,
How could
I
you
still
not
watch
like
This Is Us,
Lady Bird?
and I think that's Jess, not.
Oh my God. Yeah, I have never watched a single episode of This Is Us. Just because those commercials, like every episode seems like it's a very special episode where all the characters are going to.
Everything looks like I don't know.
That's only because every episode is, Justin.
See,
Yeah,
and I would say This Is Us it's a good show, but schmaltzy. But Tom loves it.
I love it.
like
If I would have, if someone would have been like, "Hey, I'll bet you $100," like, how does Tom Merritt feel about the show? I'd be like, "I know he doesn't like."
based on the promos for that show, it's like 90% schmaltz.
Listen, you can't base it on the promos. I saw the promos and thought, I don't know, it looks pretty schmaltzy, but it's interesting casting. We'll try it, and I love it.
Big Mandy Moore fan you are?
No, more a fan of Milo, actually. Because he was in Gilmore Girls
Let's not talk about
and Heroes.
Oh God, is that who that is?
Yeah, Peter Petrelli.
Didn't even realize that.
and
Yeah. Well,
Balboa.
again, and don't hate that show. Just not my number one.
Well, you've watched a few episodes of This Is Us, it sounds like.
I've watched the first 2 seasons.
Oh, okay. So you've watched a bunch.
I don't watch when they come out. I'm I don't watch TV when it's airing, so it's I don't even know what channel that show is on or anything. I see it when I see it, but I watch them and I don't dislike them. I think it's actually a well layered show, and there's a lot of stuff that where I'm like, it's kind of interesting that they're bringing this up, but there's some small, just.
My
That's just the way it
only
is.
relationship with
Michael
the show is football promos. Promos on NBC football.
What's his name was SNL's latest host.
Sterling.
Sterling. Tom loves him.
Yeah.
Just such a nice man.
He is.
He is. He was actually really funny.
Since we're talking about it, Eileen got to meet Mandy and Milo and Justin, from This Is Us, at South by Southwest, and Milo playfully grabbed her phone and took a selfie. It was a heartwarming moment. It made me cry.
Playfully, as opposed to aggressively,
Yes, definitely.
or something that could be,
No. It was
gauged as-
definitely she was starting to hand it to him for the selfie, and he was just like, "Pop, haha. Okay, let's take a real one."
Oh well, hey, that's fun. Those are the South by Southwest moments we all live for.
Yeah, I didn't go to South by Southwest. I keep trying to emphasize this. I went to Brian's
We're in
house.
the vicinity.
No,
Yes, I was in Austin during South by Southwest.
Oh,
The closest I came to going to South by Southwest was going to the Night Attack show, which was at least downtown. But I never set foot in the convention center. I didn't have a badge. I didn't get to meet Tim Cook or Elon Musk, or not Tim Cook, Eddie Q.
Or Tim Cook.
Yeah, he wasn't there either. He went to Brian's as well.
The last time I was there during South by Southwest was 2015. And I hadn't had a badge or gone to a panel for a few years, I think. The first time I went, it was all panels. And then the second year was you can't go to them all, pick a few, friends of mine who were speaking or whatever. I've actually never spoken on a panel. And then as it went on, it was huge hassle. Don't even go to the convention center. And that, there's a few parties that you kind of hit. And then, that last year I went, I was and we talked about this last Thursday. It was this is too hard. The whole thing's too hard. So I'm with you. Hang out with your friend who has a Gilmore girls. Jeep.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Get some tacos.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say that. I don't mean to sound like I'm hating on South by or something, or it's a badge of honor. I just don't want people to feel like, oh, Tom does DTNS. He obviously went to all these panels I've been reading about. Tom, what did you think? I don't want people to have that misimpression.
All right. Any last words to our YouTube audience before I stop the stream?
Only
last
that you're the
words.
best.
Yeah. Hey guys, great times. What do you say we meet up the next time that there's a DTNS? Okay, cool.
All right, see you then.